Howdy there, everybody. How's it going today? How do I start off this one? I guess one of my mission goals, if there ever were one on this channel, and I tried to just think of a quick synopsis, or rather just one sentence to describe what I would like to convey and what I'm trying to get out of some of my videos, at least in the aspect of helping others, is I'm hoping that a few people will watch a video and realize that, any random video that they happen to be watching, and realize that we really are all in this together, that we are all on the same level when it comes to being confused, not understanding life, trying to figure out what it's about. And the reason I find that so important is because I feel that we have an illusion that other people have things figured out. And I'm not going to pretend like I know what's in another person's head, or that there aren't certain people who have mastered some universal wisdom which allows them to live a perfectly happy life where everything goes their way. What I'm getting at really is that it's all in perspective. No matter how good your life is, there's always something that you could do that's better, or a way you could feel that was worse. Rather, let me try to reword that. We become immune to anything that we're exposed to, and we become accustomed to our environment. If we live in a painful existence, we learn to find that flower, that rose. We learn to notice those beautiful moments where we're not in pain. Anyone who's had physical pain, who's suffered, sciatica I had for years, for example, and there were times when I said, this is just my life now. This is how I'm going to live. I can't pick up my kids. I can't do anything. And then when I had a day where I didn't hurt as much, those days were amazing. I thought, I feel great today. And even to this day, years later, even this morning, I remember my thigh was hurting, and it's because the sciatic nerve, the way it runs down the leg, I can still feel little twangs now and again of pain, but it's just become the norm. It's my life. And I think about, if another person had pain like that, they might be annoyed by it if they weren't used to it. And so what I'm trying to convey there is that all of us have a different range of happiness and sadness within our lives, based on often how much adversity we've faced in our lives. How much negativity have we encountered? Well, that doesn't always drive people into the gutter and upset and depression. Often what drives people to depression is just being ignored, or not being accepted, not being loved, not having someone in your life. Therefore, our relationships are the most important things. And there's neurochemistry and everything else. But when it comes down to the different levels of happiness, those who live in poverty, they have some of the strongest wills and some of the greatest stories to tell. People who have been through so much, and they're still just totally, like, I can do this, I can conquer life, bring it on. And then others who have maybe had everything handed to them their whole life, and another person says, look at this guy, he was born rich, he built this empire, he started a business, whatever it may be. And they think, he must be happy. And the person who, that person will want to, cater to that idea. They want to pretend that they're happy, because we all do. It's not about trying to prove that, yes, money brings me happiness, but that I have to be happy, and I have money. Well, if theoretically I don't have money, but for a person who is rich and has money, they may say, well, it's not the money that makes me happy, I just have to be a happy person. But true happiness comes from, of course, knowing that you can live with nothing. A $20 bill on the ground could be exciting, If I find 20 bucks, it's still pretty cool. I've never been wealthy, but at the times in my life where I was making better money, like as a carpenter, and there was a time when my wife and I were both working and making great money, even when we had money saved up and we were paying things off and could afford extra things, it was like, meh, You live within the means that you have. We didn't have extra money to really spend because we were living at higher means. Oh, well, I can afford to buy this organic food instead of the generic or whatnot. And those little differences, they're big, but to not get too far off topic here, really, I just wanted to say that the message that I like to convey is the idea that we are all the same. And we look up to individuals, and it's very easy to do in today's world with the media and the way that people are portrayed as, you know, larger than life. You know, like the Tom Cruise syndrome, I guess. You know, when we were kids, you see a movie with Tom Cruise, and it was like he's the cool guy, and he always looked tall. And then you find out that he's like really short. That's just a metaphor for just how we, you know, drop the camera down a little bit more, put these rich people up on pedestals, or people who have started these great corporations, you know, and then end up seeing where it leads, that these people aren't happy, or that a lot of them end up wanting to be altruistic, and that's great, helping others. But I'm not getting into the money aspect here, and I'm definitely not trying to dismiss those with money, because I know that there are a lot of people with money who do a lot of great things. But the money is just money. It's just paper. It's just an idea. It's energy flow. But the question comes down to what is really making the person happy. And it would be life experiences. That's what's going to make us happy. Because, and this is something I thought about this morning, you know, it's not money that makes us happy. It's the experiences that we can have with that money. And that's why people say money can make us happier. Because those experiences, it's not even about the experiences, it's about the nostalgia. And in the big picture, what makes us happy in life are our memories. But more than that, our relationships that we built with people. And usually, those relationships and those people go hand in hand. Those people and those experiences, rather. Because another thing I considered was, you know, if you go through all your life going to every theme park and climbing mountains and traveling the world, and you have nobody to share it with, is that really fun? For some people, and maybe for some time. But we know in our hearts that, you know, that family and friends are what's important. Sometimes it's tough love. It's like you want to give love to everyone that you know, because you want people to feel accepted. But there's a time when we actually have to protect ourselves too, especially if someone else's energy is affecting us negatively. And that makes it very difficult. We have to be honest with people and say, our communication is not working. I'm not enjoying this, and I'm not feeling good. And it is about the net value of happiness. But life's not about happiness. That's something I want to just get out right there. It's not about being happy. Happy is defined in many different ways, but it's directly correlated to the amount of adversity that we've faced, or what we can compare it to. And neurochemistry and everything else plays a role, but you could have serotonin flowing for forever. Eventually you get what they call serotonin syndrome, where you just can never, you know, get back to normal. And the body's design, it has its limits. The mind has its limits. The best we can do is yearn for an understanding of one another. But to bring it back to the point I wanted to make earlier, when we look up to people and see them as heroes, and the one thing I tell people is, if you think that I have it figured out, don't. Because, I mean, people have said, oh man, you must have the greatest life. I totally love my life. Or, you know, oh, you seem so wise. Well, in some ways I am, and in some ways I'm a total dumbass. But I've worked towards understanding things because that's something that's important to me. Not because I want to be wise, not because I want to have money, but because I want to live happily, and I want to have life work for me. It's like they say, if you don't set your own path, someone will set it for you. If you're not working for yourself, you're working for someone else. This is in every aspect of life. Life will throw you through the ringer and drag you around. You can sit and mope about how hard life is all you want. It's really hard for me. I can't deal with victims anymore. I always wanted to say, you can do it, and give people props. And I watched Aaron Gok the other day. He made a video, and he was talking about that, actually, about how, you know, we have empathy and understanding for people, but too much empathy is a weakness. Often this leads to the social justice warrior syndrome in some people. I'm not saying that fighting for justice is a bad thing. I'm saying that some people take it as almost a trade, a job, to go out and fight for everybody else's rights, because it's like a hidden something within ourselves that we see other people oppressed, and we want to stop that. But there is a point where there's nothing much you can do. And so when it comes to people we look up to, what we call heroes, You know, whether it be a guy in a robe spitting Buddhist talk, or our pastor or religious leader, or you know, the mayor of the city or the president, or any other person that we think has it figured out. Just because they're wearing a suit and a tie and they're smooth talkers doesn't mean a goddamn thing about who they are as people or how happy they actually are. And they'll sit there and they'll tell you this is what's important and this is what matters, and they'll be absolutely sure about it. And then you'll have another guy say complete opposite, and he'll be absolutely sure about it. So when we look up to a person as being infallible, and I know this is an extreme example, but this is the metaphor I always give people. I say, not a metaphor, but rather any person that you look up to and start to have, you know, wow, I really like this guy. He's really smart, or girl, whatever, whoever it may be. As long as if you're listening to what they're saying, it's great. As long as you don't fall into obsession over the person. This is exactly what happened with, say, the story of Jesus. You know, the message that was supposedly conveyed was turned around to worship him instead of the message. And this happens with a lot of people today. You know, for example, Alex Jones fans who will defend him even on something they don't care about, just because they're on the defense. And this is politicians, you know, movie stars, you know, you name it, religious leaders. Picture the, you know, just realize this is what I tell people. Picture that person that you idolize. Picture them sitting on the toilet in the morning. In the sense that that's it. We all shit. He gets up tired, our hair's all messy, we're sitting there on the toilet, taking a shit. And some people may find that absurd, or obscene rather, but it's not at all. It's the reality of it. That's where we come from. That we come from this reality of these obscene body movements, you know, bowel movements, and we fart and we sweat, and we're just human, every one of us. You know, nobody's transcended bodily fluids. So it's just one of those extreme examples that we really all do. The old saying is put your pants on one leg at a time, but I'm expounding on this so much because it's such a crucial thing I think for us as a society to recognize that people are just people, and that our image of people is seldom who they really are. And sometimes I've thought, you know, when people send me a message or an email and they say, oh, I've watched your videos and this video really helped me in this time of my life, and I can admit to myself, well, that's good. It makes me feel good inside to know I helped someone. Is that ego? A little bit, maybe. But the ego aspect is what drives us. And I say, mention that because there's so much talk out there about conquering your ego and not being proud. It's in many religions and many different, you know, belief systems that we should be very modest. But modesty comes with extremes too. It's in between, you know, being a show-off and being too timid. The idea that, I guess, when we get props for something we've done, there's nothing wrong with taking and accepting that as something that can help boost and move us forward. That's what we need to do with each other. The people out there who are victims, they don't need to be told it'll be all right. They need to be given props and say, this is how you move forward. Tough love, but love. And the people who aren't the victims but the abusers, those people need to be put in their place too. The people who are harming anyone else. It's one of the biggest issues in society that I see. And it comes down to people who abuse, not just physical abuse, mental abuse, power abuse, monetary abuse. You know, all I can say is that, and this is, I can't remember who it was, Albert Camus or Camus, or if it was somebody else. I think it might have been Hegel. One of the philosophers, it doesn't matter who it was, said something to the effect of something that I've always lived by, a philosophy that I've for several years now done. I say, if I want to live my life a certain way, what I have to ask myself is, if everyone lived this way, or everyone did this, how would it affect society? And of course not everybody would ever do any one thing, so it doesn't matter. Like, there are parts and components. Like, just because one person is extremely this way and another person extremely that way doesn't mean they need to meet in the middle and homogenize. We need extremes. But if the things that we do in our lives could ever harm someone or bring someone to lose their rights as an individual to live a happy life, that's when we have to step back and ask ourselves, is our freedom worth others' loss of freedom just for our happiness, because there is a net happiness that we all must share in order to be a happy society, and that shows today. You know, we've come to a point where there's actually less poverty in the world than there ever has been, but we're at a precipice where that's going to start to reverse again. You know, all these great inventions, and the population doubled between the time my mom was born and the time I was born, and then it doubled again since I was born to today. And people understand the impact of this is huge. I mean, I think there was only 1 billion people in the year 1800. It's multiplied by 7 in 2 centuries. It's absolutely insane what's going on out there. The most important thing we need to have is understanding and care and compassion for one another. But we have to be honest about how we feel and put people in their place when they're wronging others. It's a discretionary thing. You have to know whether or not you think someone's abusing another person, or whether or not you think you should be involved. It's like the father who's hitting his kid in public. Do you say anything? What if he's hitting his wife in public? Do you say anything? You know, in the 50s and up till through the 60s, a husband could drive his wife down if she was PMSing, or what they used to call basically, this is where the word hysteria comes from. Hysteria, just like hysterectomy, it has to do with the women's reproductive organs. So hysteria was something that women did because of being a woman. And a man could drive down because his wife is hysterical, drop her off at the psych ward, and leave her there indefinitely with just him and the doctor's word, or just his word. This may seem kind of off topic, but it's not at all. It shows how recently we have, you know, how we value each other, and how that wasn't considered abuse. That was the norm. You know, people could do that kind of stuff. To where if somebody was black and they were drinking out of your water fountain, you could beat them down with a baseball bat and your neighbors would support you. And to think that that hasn't changed today, that we've just put a blanket over it, is something we have to realize too. Racism, sexism, abuse, and hatred, these things have always been there, just under the surface. We are just told to suppress them. Sometimes we do it religiously, sometimes politically, sometimes we don't want our neighbors to know, but there are people out there who not necessarily mean others harm, but think that that's the only way to protect themselves. So it's a very complicated issue, society is. And I think it's really important that we understand as much as we can about cultures, not just ours, but others, so we can start to move past the differences that we have and realize that they're not going away. And they're only going to compound, and we can't hide away from it. And so in our own lives, the first step is to realize that everyone is on that same footing, that we've all grown up with different upbringings. Sometimes we build defenses because of issues we had as a child, but the problems we've had can make us stronger, and we can't play the victim role, and we need to give other people props so they don't play the victim role, and to really be honest in our feelings to one another. I think that's the most crucial thing. Even if that honesty shows that we're not the person people want us to be, because there's so much to be said about wrapping up your feelings and not being honest. I think that it's probably one of the biggest issues with people in society, afraid to be their true selves, and that's the only way I'll be. And I'll tell you, it does make you a happier person. You don't have to hide anything or pretend. Wearing masks is something we do well as a society, so sometimes we take them off and there's just another one underneath it, and perhaps it's just an endless series of masks. Talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful day.